Today we have a special guest, Kelsey Wickenhauser, who is a physician's assistant, a fellow podcaster, and a health coach. She is such a delight, and I'm so excited for you to learn from her. She teaches us all about how to break free from diet culture's grip and discover true wellness. She also gives us some easy strategies for nourishing our bodies and prioritizing self-care while embracing abundance. It was such a joy to interview her, and I know you're going to have some amazing takeaways from this interview today. So stay tuned. Hey parents, welcome to Fulfillment Therapy. Do you want to raise your kids better and have a stronger marriage? Are you up late at night researching marriage and parenting tools and self-care tips? Do you start each day hoping for deeper connections and less chaos, but it ends with family arguments and going 12 different directions again? My name's Kendra, wife, mom, therapist, and growth enthusiast. It wasn't until I discovered how to fulfill my unmet needs that I was finally able to show up as my best self as a spouse and parent. I realized that by meeting my needs, I could more fully meet the needs of my family with more energy and less resentment. In this podcast, I teach parents skills like boundary setting, prioritizing personal needs, communication, and claiming ownership. Just like my clients, you'll be shocked by the improvement in your marriage, parenting, and personal life when you focus on fulfilling your important unmet needs. Ready to prioritize yourself so you can quit mentally throat punching people? Then grab those earbuds and head outside, and let's walk and talk. Welcome back to Fulfillment Therapy. Today we have a special guest, Kelsey Wickenhauser. Tell us a little bit about who you are and help our audience understand what you have going on for you, if that's okay.
Thanks so much for having me on the podcast. So I'm Kelsey, and I have a podcast called Kingdom Fit Moms, and a little bit about me. So I am a wife of 11 years, and I have 3 little kids, 7, 5, and 2. So in the thick and fun part, all parenting is fun, right? But it's a lot of fun. And we decided to homeschool a couple years ago, and I never in a million years would have imagined that, but here we are. And it's also hard, but I'm loving it. I am a physician assistant by training. I have a lifestyle medicine certification, and I work a little bit in medicine, but I'm a PA turned health coach. And I have always been fascinated by weight management and the psychology behind the obesity epidemic. And I felt the need to fix it from a young age. And so I have tried in the clinic setting for years and years, working with patients in different capacities. And it was hard to see much change. And God really put it on my heart about 4 years ago to create a way to reach moms. And we know that God's a God of multiplication. And so I just believe that when we can influence moms to make change, it's really going to influence generations. So I started a business to do health coaching, and the Holy Spirit has really helped me lay foundations over the past 4 years for how to do kingdom-minded weight loss, not just focus on the food and the calories in, calories out macros approach, but to help women truly heal from why the struggle exists.
I love that. That's so powerful. So it sounds like you moved away mostly from maybe moving away from the medical model and more into preventative health, or if there is a problem, even then exploring the why, the deeper reason, and not just putting a Band-Aid on things, but really getting into the deeper causes so that they can heal and have greater success. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes, exactly. And lifestyle medicine is a growing field of medicine. And now there is science backing that you cannot just prevent disease by eating a lot of plant-based foods and moving your body, but you can also reverse disease by doing this. And so that's kind of where I started to transition. And then, in the medical model, insurance makes it hard to really get to the heart of people and to spend time with them. And so I've taken all of those tools and transition into creating a business where I can kind of do what I want and do what I feel like people really need in order to heal.
I love that. That's one thing that really speaks to me as well because therapists really focus on the problem, like problem focused therapy. And I love solution focused therapy or positive psychology, all of these things. And it's almost feels like the same thing what you're talking about, moving away from that into more of, okay, now what can we do? Let's talk about better solutions than what we've done in the past. And I love how you really spoke my language about changing generations. That is amazing. I love that when people have a similar hope and mission in their lives is to heal generations because otherwise this is not going to change. It's just going to get worse for our children, right?
Yes, definitely.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate that. So, I was looking at your website a little bit and I saw a couple things and I was wondering if I could get you to break something down a little bit for me, a couple things that I read, and explain to our listeners on fulfillment therapy kind of what that means. You said living in alignment with God's design is the key to true freedom. And then you also said release the burdens of constant food and weight obsessions. So both those things, like what does that mean and how do you go about teaching that or how do you do that?
Yes, good question. So, for the women I work with, and I think really for anybody, right? True freedom is to be all that God called you to be.
Mhm.
And in particular, for my audience, being fulfilled and walking in who they are designed to be is inhibited by thinking about weight all the time.
Mhm.
And so, what my passion is to help women to stop being consumed by how they look or feel in clothes and to stop hiding and to feel confident and to feel sexy around their spouse and to have energy. And so when we're talking about, okay, how does living in alignment with God's design lead to that freedom? We have come up with a lot of different counterfeit ways to try to live in this freedom. And with health, it's through fad diets or restriction or eating fake foods or over exercising or essentially making food or fitness an idol. And this is exactly where the enemy wants us to stay stuck on this hamster wheel of obsessing over something that distracts us from living in alignment with the spirit. And so, if we think about, okay, what is God's design for health? Well, the biggest place that we drastically miss the mark now is just to simply eat real food. God created food very simply. So I always give the example of an apple, right? You can pick an apple from a tree. It doesn't have a label, it's a single ingredient, it's just an apple, and it's filled with food as medicine, right? There's so many good qualities to this apple. When you take it and you make it applesauce and you add sugar, and, you process it, it's a little further removed. An apple fritter is there's a little bit of real food, but it's not really how it's designed to be eaten. And then you could have like apple Laffy Taffy, which is not real food at all. And so personally in my health journey, I've had 3 kids. I've just I'm back at the weight I was, and it's not through any man-made system. Like I don't count things, I don't do macros. I just have a general idea of these things, but I don't want to live enslaved to any system because I just believe so wholeheartedly that God's ways are simple. And it can feel too good to be true because we're so brainwashed to think that we have to be on a diet. And it's confusing. I totally feel for all of us. It's become very confusing. And then the government has been involved, and there's money in processed foods, and we've just been living in a lot of lies. So, when we talk about living God's design for health, we have to go back to simplicity and also to live out this idea that we are worthy of having abundant life. And I think that's a lot of what you do with your clients, but it's to believe that, yes, even you, like you're capable and you're worthy of deeply caring for your physical body, and it matters. It's not just your spiritual or mental or emotional health. And so, one of the things I love working through is breaking off this idea of the orphan spirit with my clients and helping them to understand that they're worthy and they're capable of much more than they can imagine. And then ultimately, I also think it's recognizing that health, it's a gift, and we aren't made to just obsess over our bodies, but rather we flip that and recognize that we're meant to be diligent and obedient with our bodies so that our bodies work well to do all the things that we are designed to do in freedom. Being a PA, it's a good job. There was some fulfillment there, but when I stepped out of my comfort to do the thing that God called me to do, uninhibited, saying like, you know what, I'm just trusting that this is who I'm designed to be, like there's no greater joy. And so when I talk about like breaking off that burden of excess weight and walking out who God has designed you to be and in walking in his alignment, it's all about shedding anything that's keeping you from being the person that you were created to be before sin entered the world and disrupted all that. And so a lot of that has to be done through what you're doing with helping women heal their hearts and their minds. You can tell I get kind of fired up about this because I just really desire that for people. And just imagine if we had a whole culture of women saying, yeah, I'm going to go through this process and do this hard work to break this generationally. It's going to change so many things culturally moving forward.
The audience can't see me right now, but I'm like beaming and I was writing really quickly all these things that you were saying. Okay, this is sort of off topic, but not. When I was in college, like my first degree, there was some study that they showed where you can, even with cameras, you can show when, I guess you could even say like your energy field, your aura, everybody calls it different things. It grows when people are thinking positive things or like-minded things or anything. Anyway, as you were talking, I could like feel just more
Our energy
connected
is
to
growing. Yeah.
yes, and the energy and feeling so good and happy about it. But I just, if it's okay, want to just repeat some of those things to reiterate those points that you said. But you said there's these counterfeit ways to live in freedom. And you mentioned a couple, but there's even for my audience, that can be, well, for some of them, because I work with parents too, it can be pornography, it can be sex, it can be media, it can be sugar, all of these things. Anything that we use as escapism can be that counterfeit. But then also you said how we can make food or fitness even an idol. And I very much have seen that with my clients. But it can be work. It can be, honestly, it can even be parenting. It can be our children, where these things become our God rather than becoming who we're meant to become and aligning ourselves with God's will. Not all the listeners are religious or spiritual necessarily. So this does resonate with some people, not others. But just what is it that you make an idol? I'm thinking about that. Another thing you said, I don't want to live enslaved in any way. God's way is simple. That is so profound. I highlighted it, I underlined it. Like, I think that's true. Like, we want to overcomplicate things. We want them to be complex and big and deep and profound when really the simple answers are the most beautiful and the ones that work the best. And I love how you talked about the apple example. Like, so good. Oh my gosh, Kelsey, I have several more. I'll say them very quickly and then I'll let you have it. But you are worthy to have an abundant life, going back to that over and over, because really those unmet needs, those at that core, most of us, we don't feel really, truly, we don't feel worthy. And then you're capable of more than you can imagine. If we could just teach that and really believe that, all of us, even us personally, we are so much more capable than we can possibly imagine. And there's
Yeah.
no greater joy in doing what we were made to do. And it sounds like that's exactly what you're doing. So, oh my goodness, so many good things you just told me.
Yes.
I apologize. I don't want to jump in too much, but I felt like those needed to be reiterated. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Can I tell you a quick story just about being capable?
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it's good to remember that if you have things that need healing from childhood or you're kind of working through some stuff, it's helpful to have somebody come along with you and show you what you're capable of, even when you don't believe it
Mm.
yet. I have one client who she's lost 100 pounds and about, well, we've been working together for a couple years and now she's leading in my community. But I remember that she had a sister who was about to do a triathlon. We were just getting started working together. And I was like, I feel like you're going to do that. You know, she had no concept of feeling like an athlete whatsoever. So a year later, she did a triathlon and she won her age group and she's training right now for another one. And so I think that, again, it's nice to have people when you are feeling low, when you are feeling like you aren't worthy, to help call that out of you. And so that's why it's good to have peers and it's good to have mentors who are further along in the journey who can see part of you that maybe you don't see yet.
Absolutely. I was going to speak to that for a second. So help call that out of you. I think the game changer for both my husband and I, because I mean, some people assume like, oh, they're therapists, they don't really have struggles. So we have all the struggles. Like we understand firsthand what a lot of this stuff is like. And it wasn't until we both decided to invest in like a personal growth course or something. And again, this is with us both having the background and the education that we have. But until he signed up for this accountability course or something, where it's really focused on self-care and personal growth and different things. I'm not even so concerned what the course is, but when you are willing to invest in yourself, when you're willing to seek out mentors that will help do exactly what you talked about, Kelsey, of calling that forth out of you, seeing more in yourself than you currently see in yourself, and that belief level, they can be those tools, those resources to really help take that to the next level. And it still amazes me how long it took me and my husband to figure that out, and even for our clients. So I think if there's like one thing I could teach people too, oh, there's so many things, but the one thing would be it's almost like getting a gym membership. Are you really hung up about that price of the gym membership when the results, the benefits are exponential and what is going to happen through that process? So, yeah, I love that you spoke to that. Thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah, and just in being around the energy, I think of you were talking about energy, but being around people who carry the energy that you want to embody, right? That's part of what you invest in. So when you go to a gym and you're investing in that, you're around people who are embodying being fit, right? And so you start to feed off that and you start to say, you know what, I can do this.
Exactly. Like everybody's kind of heard of this too, but the five people you spend the most time around, those are the people that you become like.
Yeah.
Like you want to surround yourself with people that can lift you up, and also be
Definitely.
that person that will lift others. On another note, though, I'm curious if you have any tips for our listeners on simple ways to improve their physical health, because you work primarily with people on these types of things and spiritual, it sounds like. But any guidance you have for our listeners that we mostly focus on mental health and wellness, holistic as well, but on simple ways that they can take that to the next level that feels so overwhelming and like another to do for them.
Yeah. So three main things I would say. So the first, I already alluded to it, but just focus on eating real food. And if you need a place or resource to start, the Daniel Plan is an excellent book to help you to understand that at a greater depth, because I know a lot of questions come up. But you don't need to initially think about macros or calories or cutting out carbs or any of that. And most of my clients, many of them, we never even go into those specifics. We just focus on switching to real food, and the scale will drop, right? Because God's food is naturally low calorie. And if you're focusing on energy or you're focusing on lowering inflammation in your body, making that switch to real food is going to make a huge difference. The second thing I would say is do not forget the power of your schedule or your planner to improve your physical health. So, a few things that you need to have in your schedule: you need to have time to meal plan and to prep your food. We've kind of become a culture who wants to eat conveniently. And so I really encourage you to go back to, again, more of these simple ways in design and cook, learn to love to cook again. And then you need to have in your schedule some time to move, whether that be walking or going to the gym, does not have to be complicated. And then you need to have in your schedule time to rest, because if you aren't resting, you're going to burn out. And then the third thing that I would say, a simple tip, is to remember that the way that you speak to yourself matters. You've got to learn to speak life over your journey. Nobody else is going to fight for your health unless you do. And so start speaking scripture over yourself or start speaking positive affirmations, and don't let yourself go down those trains of thought like, oh, there goes the scale. I failed again, or this is a hopeless cause. You have to stop that thought and replace them with things like, I'm an overcomer. I have the power of discipline and self-control. And so I think that we underestimate how important that piece is as well.
Oh, I love that. And I appreciate how simple and straightforward those three steps are. I'm going to say those again and correct me if I get these wrong. So, number one is eat real food. And the Daniel Plan, is that what you said is a book that they can
Yes.
check out? And
Mhm.
then the second one is the power of your planner. So, plan things like meal planning and prep and moving and resting. And then the third is the way that you speak to yourself matters. And I love all of that. Actually, I can't say I love more. Probably 2 and 3 are more my baby because I understand those more. But, we talk a lot about neural pathways and strengthening those neural pathways and those super highways, like, how we talk to ourselves matters and what kind of highway are we creating, and not only that, but what are we modeling for our children? Do we want them to talk them to themselves that way? And as soon as I do that, and I do it all the time, and I talk about it a lot to my clients, it's that shift, like, of course, I wouldn't want my kids to talk to themselves that way, but it's hard to get out of those habits sometimes. So wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing those 3 ways to get started and to just make those small shifts. Like, as you were talking, I'm like, I could definitely eat more real food. And I think you're absolutely right. We are this culture of convenience. And now that my kids are in that stage where they're all in sports and activities, it's so much more this culture of like, oh, something fast. One quick tip that I discovered is it pays to teach your children because I have felt like I've reached my quota of all these meals that I want to make after all the littles. So now we each take a day, and even my youngest is 10. She'll even take a day and cook dinner. So I only have to do it once a week. So if you put your time into
That's
teaching,
amazing. Wow.
yes, it's very nice. But let's be honest, they're not always cooking real food. So
Hey,
maybe I have to train some more.
it's okay. You're still teaching them that step of being in the kitchen and you can keep transitioning little by little.
Yeah.
I think it's good to remember that you don't need to change everything all at once too. Small
Right.
changes matter.
Absolutely. That 1%. We talk about that a lot on my podcast as well. Just one quick question for you. How have you, Kelsey, created greater fulfillment in your life as maybe a parent or podcaster or coach or business owner? What's a simple way you've created greater fulfillment?
Yeah, I think as I've mentioned before, there's, in my opinion, no greater gift than walking out who God created you to be. And I knew for a long time that He called me to helping people with health and weight loss. And, I went through this season where I was able to gain knowledge and authority through my role as a physician assistant. And then He took me out of this comfort zone and starting a business. But I can say with certainty now that women's lives are being transformed because they now, they understand how to actually change and to transition. So, all that to say is, I think finding greater fulfillment is typically done through getting out of your comfort zone and listening to your inner voice telling you, like, hey, this is who you are and this is who you're designed to be. So, don't ignore that and be okay with being uncomfortable.
Oh, I love that. That's beautiful. Get outside of your comfort zone to be who you're meant to be. If we could all do that, just that 1%, just that leaning into that discomfort and sometimes even into that pain and knowing that it will make us even more like who we were meant to become. It'll help us reach our higher potential, our greater selves. That's beautiful. I'm curious, do you have any final thought or even a favorite quote or mantra you'd like to share before we end today?
One of my favorite teachers is Myles Munroe, and he talks a lot on vision and purpose. And he has a quote that says, "The greatest tragedy in life is not death, but a life without a purpose." So I think that just remembering that we're meant to be here to not just live and be entertained and be comfortable, there is so much more for us should we choose to show up and to go for it.
Absolutely. Oh, I think that's wonderful. Can you share that quote one more time? I couldn't write that fast.
Sure. The greatest tragedy in life is not death, but a life without a purpose.
That really speaks to me. I'm all about that too, living with a purpose. My listeners know this, but just in ending, both my dad and my brother died pretty tragically. And that always makes me go back to purpose and living a full life and just living our best self because we just don't know how long it's going to be. No day is guaranteed. And I often think about, like, okay, what is my purpose? Who am I meant to become? What do I want to do with this gift of this life? And I think it's so easy to get complacent, but how you're speaking to just leaning in and becoming who we were meant to become, like that's where true joy and fulfillment lie. Like, I love that you were able to end with that and bring that to the table today. And I am so grateful, Kelsey, for you coming on and sharing your light and your wisdom with us. It was beautiful, and I smiled the whole time. And I am so grateful that you were able to make this happen to come on the show today. So thank you.
Thanks so much for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I loved it. All right. Well, you take care. And also, can you please let us know where we can find you?
Sure. So you can go to my website, kelseywickenhauser.com. You can find me on Instagram at Kelsey Wickenhauser, or I
Awesome.
have a free Facebook community called Kingdom Fit Moms where I'd love to hang out as well.
Perfect. Okay. And we'll put that in the show notes as well so that we can find you. Well, thank you again. And we loved every minute of it. So I appreciate it.
Take care.
You too. Hey friends, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, chances are someone else would too. Would you take 30 seconds to share this with a friend who's looking for greater family fulfillment? And while you're sharing, tell me what you think about the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. It refuels me when I hear this podcast is helping you. No matter what your house or your hair looks like, I'll meet you back here every Monday and Thursday morning for more episodes. Until then.